So now that we've talked about our obsessions, I think we should move into Metaphysical Corner.
Corner. Yes. All right. What do we got for the corner today?
What I'd like to talk about today for Metaphysical Corner, how about we talk about haunted houses, like demonic energy, and dominion.
Oh, I love talking about dominion. That's my favorite thing. Well, haunted houses. Have you ever lived in a haunted house?
I can't say haunted in the Hollywood version of a haunted house where the house is killing me and I can't get out of it. But I've had spiritual activity in a home. And it wasn't anything frightening. It was like, cabinets opening up. One time, all of the water in the house went off simultaneously. So all the faucets came on and the toilets flushed. Yeah,
that's weird.
It was weird, and I did have a ghostie in my house that would make my coffee for me. I'm not kidding.
What do you mean?
I was living alone. I mean, the ghostie didn't scoop out, but it was the old-fashioned coffee maker that wasn't on a timer. So I would just pour the water, put the grounds in, and then when I would get up in the morning, I'd go downstairs, press the button, go get ready for work, and then come back and get a cup of coffee. Yeah. And when I started doing that, well, boom, bang, bing, bang, boom. Right. I was in my bed one morning and I just started to wake up and I hear, I'm like, what? That sounds like my coffee maker. I go downstairs, the coffee's already made. I could smell it halfway down the stairs.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. Thank you, Ghosty.
And I'm like, well, it was fresh coffee. Could I have hit the button the night before? Maybe, and it could have sat there all night. But I heard that.
No, you heard it.
Yeah. And so how I know is because one morning I got up and I was downstairs. I was doing a few other things before I even went to the kitchen, and the coffee started making itself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So so you had like a butler ghostie. You had like a chef, a personal chef.
I mean, I wish they would have cooked for me.
Oh my God!
But
not all ghosts are bad. Ghosts get a bad rap.
Absolutely not. Yeah. But I mean, the most, like the weirdest, oddest thing that's ever happened was cabinet doors, like kitchen cupboards, all open. Every single one wide open. And
were you in the room when they opened, or did you walk into the room and all of a sudden they were all open?
So I walked in and they were all open, but one just had opened. Like I walked in. So when you walked in my kitchen at the time, if you walked in, all of the cabinetry was over here. Then there was a refrigerator and a little quasi island and then some cabinetry here. Everything was all open. There was one cabinet right on the side and I saw it like out of the corner move, or I saw something moving. So then I looked and it did like that. Like it just finished the open.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
Carol Ann? That's poltergeistic. So was this like, were you a kid or was this in an adult house?
I was an adult. So
so it's you. You're the poltergeist.
Apparently. You. And one other thing happened that was really wild. I had a friend over. We were cleaning because I had just moved in, and we were cleaning and putting some things away. And there were a few tchotchkes left by the previous owner. The previous owner was a friend of the family. She died in the house, and my mother bought the house because she didn't, who's going to be your new neighbor kind of thing. And I'm like, and I was young. I'm like, let me go over there. I'll pay the mortgage. I'll live there. That'll get me out. This is before I decided, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. So my friend was over helping me, and she had the lady that lived there had these clowns. They were not cute. They were kind of creepy.
Already
and they were
bad.
dolls, and a lot of them were like dolls.
Yeah.
And it was just they weren't cute and they looked a little cheap, whatever. Well, she was talking about them. The burners on the oven turned on and whooshed up. It was a gas stove. And I said, see, you don't talk about other people's things. And I just said, her name was Betty. I said, oh, Betty. I said, no. I said, she didn't mean it. I said, lovely things. I will keep them. And I did not get rid of those last three things. I kept them because I was like, I don't want her to, you know what I mean? I don't want to suffer the wrath of someone. But she came to me that night. And I was laying, because I stayed in the master, that was her room. And I just laid down in bed and I was just, looking up, and there I saw her floating in a a peach colored flowy, almost like a nightgown type thing. It was just flowy. She was just standing there, not standing there, but floating there, just looking at me, like down on me. And I'm like, hi. And I'm like, I love your house. I'm happy to be here. I'm like, stay as long as you want.
Right.
Whatever. So this is the funny thing. The next day I was having coffee with my mother and I was explaining to her what had happened with the burner and all of that. And she said, maybe it was Betty. I said, it was because I saw her. And she said, And she said, well, what did she look like? I explained what she looked like. And she said, oh my God. And I'm like, what? She said, that's the dress she was wearing in her casket.
Oh my
I
gosh.
didn't go to the funeral. I didn't know.
Right.
And I'm like, well, then she was really there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm hoping she understands, I love the house, I loved her tchotchkes, and that was that. But I mean, I've had other things, but yeah, those are a couple of them.
That's a legitimate haunted house. But that's sweet though.
Yeah, it was.
She was
I
probably
didn't feel
just
terrified.
checking on you, and I think with ghosts, I think they try to give us evidences that they're around, like maybe the gas burner, like, hey, I'm here, I'm listening to this conversation, or I'm watching what you're doing.
And
but
why is
then
that bitch talking about my clowns?
Right, don't get rid of my clowns and my cheap dolls. No offense, Betty. No offense. But I think that they give us these little signs, and then we get so scared. Some people get so freaked out and scared that they then stop giving us any signs because they don't want to scare us. They just want to, in a way that we can notice, let us know that they're there. So that's really sweet.
That lady gave me my, which was so weird. It was my 12th birthday. And I was leaving, I think, taking a walk up the street. She said, come here, I want to give you something. She said, I know it's your birthday. She hands me a book. The book is a really old book called The Psychic Sciences.
Oh,
and it had all kinds of things
my kind
in
of
there.
book.
Card reading, palmistry, pendulum,
Wow.
reading regular playing cards, gypsy cards, domino, like all kinds of things that you can use to divine. The rods, divining for water and natural things. It was, she didn't know this about me at all. And I said, why are you giving me this? And she said, this book is for you.
Oh, she knew.
Which really further deepened my interest in this sort of thing because my grandmother was just starting to teach me some things. So yeah. So that was interesting.
Thank you, Betty.
So what about you?
On the road. What about
Well,
me?
I know you've had probably millions.
Not really. I grew up in a really traumatic situation with my parents. Like my father was a substance abuser, and my mom was a victim of his abuse and also a substance abuser. So we grew up in a few homes. We moved around, but there was a lot of dark energy because of, I think, the abuse. And so my theory is that when you sustain really negative, dark energy, that energy doesn't just dissipate, because energy never just goes away. It becomes something, and it becomes thought forms. It becomes these patterns of energy that start to collect in your home. And if you continue to feed them with your energy, they become intelligent and start to knock around and do things. And this is what a poltergeist actually is. And a poltergeist, or these evidences that are happening outside of you, actually originate inside of you. So I think my father was a generator of these thought forms. I think my mother, in her misery, was a generator of this. And so I just grew up in that darkness, and more so, I think my father was haunted. I remember one night we were living in this, when I tell you, it was a shack, man. It was a shack made of plywood that didn't have electricity or running water. We were poor, living out in the jungle of Hawaii, and my father was drinking like he always did, and there was we had a kerosene lantern, and he was really drunk, and I was having a conversation with him. At that time, I had been going to church, Christian church. And so I was trying to talk to him a little bit about saving him or something. I'm sure I was trying to bring some Jesus into the matter. And he started talking to me in the most blasphemous, obscene way. And I could see in his eyes just like a spirit. I felt deeply, outside of even my religious indoctrination, I felt like this man is possessed with something. There's a spirit in there that's animating. And when he drinks, the spirit kind of comes out of him and starts screwing up my life and screwing up all of our lives. And so my father just kind of was the haunted person. I had all kinds of spiritual experiences as a child. My father, at the same time, was very psychic. Very psychic. He was an animist. He believed, he was born in Hawaii. He believed, everything had a spirit, like rocks had a spirit and trees had a spirit. And he was actually quite spiritual. He was just distorted because of his alcoholism and his drug abuse. But he was very psychic. And so when I would come to him with my little girl observations in the world, like I'm seeing these beings in this tree or I'm seeing energy around people, like he absolutely believed it and was able to communicate with me and give me information that I needed as a child in order to live in this kind of spiritual ecosystem. So on the one hand, he was very helpful in this way, but on the other hand, he brought a lot of bad energy into my life. So I don't know that my spiritual experiences with different beings had anything to do with him. I just was a psychic child, but he did support me in that. But you mentioned dominion, and we should probably explain what dominion is.
Absolutely.
Dominion is the energy that we run inside of ourselves when we are in alignment with like our higher self, like our soul self. Like when we know that we are spiritual people and I'm here for a reason and I'm connected to something that's much greater than myself and outside of this dimension. Like when we live in that way, we live in a power position. And I think that some people have scary spiritual experiences with ghosts and poltergeists, and they feel powerless. And they feel like, oh, these ghosts are doing this to me, or these bad dreams are happening to me, or this bad energy is around me. When if they just switched into their divinity, their dominion, right? Like their soul self, they wouldn't have any problems. They really wouldn't have any problems. And the moment that I learned about who I truly was as a spiritual being and became powerful in that way, all that stuff, shadow beings, knocks on the wall, scary things that used to happen in my life, those things just went away because the world of spirit always obeys who you feel yourself to be. And that's so important to me. Like the world of spirit always obeys who you feel yourself to be. So if you feel yourself to be a victim or like afraid, then the world of spirit, meaning all the beings and earthbounds and ghosts, they respond to your fear in a way that causes more of that for you. But if you're interacting in the world of spirit from a power position, like, no, this is my experience. You don't just get to roll up in my house, shadow person, and start messing with me. No. When you're coming from that place, they obey your power. That's what dominion is. And a lot of my evidences, my paranormal evidences, kind of stopped when I started living in my dominion. That doesn't mean I don't have spiritual experiences, but they're much different. They're, angelic. They're guides. Yeah. There's meditation. There's dimensional travel. There's all that kind of cool stuff, but none of the fearful stuff. Believe me, I am not. Look, I always get so I get so crazy, but I mean, like I'm not afraid of a shadow being. I'm not afraid of a ghost. I ain't afraid of no ghost. I really am not, and so. There's really nothing for them to gain by trying that with me.
Yeah.
So
don't come for me if I don't send for you.
That's right. Ghost. I mean, and if you do, I mean, I told you I saw a boy in my room talking to my husband.
Yeah.
Like a spirit boy leaning over talking to me. And I'm like, no, sir, young man, you cannot be giving a message to my husband unless you clear that with, get out of my room. And I marched him out of my room. He was a 7-year-old spirit boy. He said his name was Generous from Georgia. Did I tell you this story?
No. Oh we might have to talk about that on Afterpod.
We might. This was just a little while ago, but he had this riot of like brown curls, and he was leaning over my husband's bed talking in his ear. And I'm like, I don't approve of, I don't know who you are. You're just a kid, but you got to get out of my room. Like even in spirit, astral traveling, I got dominion. And this boy's just like, okay, I gotta go. I'm leaving.
The street light is on and you need to go home.
That's right. Bye-bye, sir. I'll be talking to my husband.
I saw my Raven the other night.
Oh, you did?
She was on the bed with us. So Raven is my dog that I had to put down before Christmas. But she was on the bed. And Claire was curled up. And it's funny, Claire went over to where Raven usually lays and just curled up. And she kept moving. And finally she moved. And then she sort of like, it looked like she wrapped herself around, but nothing. And then I just kind of looked, and then I looked, and then I saw, and Raven was there, and she wrapped herself around her. So she clearly saw her.
Well, so tell the people how that happens. Like, did you see that with your third eye, or did you see that, like, did you see energy with your naked vision?
So I saw with my naked eye something happening, something there. And then it sort of transitioned to almost like a negative, like, image, like, you know, the reversed sort of image. And I kind of saw Raven, and I just saw her look over at me, and I was like, oh my God, there's my little baby. And so, you know, I leaned forward, and I'm like, you know, because I love her and I miss her. And Claire was just sort of wrapped around her. But I think I almost felt like I sort of was not 100% on this plane. And so I think that's why I got sort of a mix, because I was kind of here, but maybe third eye kind of not. Yeah. And so I think that's why I kind of saw it in such a manner. And every now and then I do see her. So.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you also mentioned demons.
Well, because, you know, there are a lot of people that I know in my regular life that will, you know, if something creepy happens or they feel scared, they just, it's a demon, it's demonic. And
right.
I don't necessarily buy it in maybe what Hollywood slings it as. I don't actually believe in hell per se. I mean, I believe there are dimensions and realms, and maybe a lot of that might even be what we've brought on and why we are there. But you know, you tell me, what is that?
Well, you know, this is one of those subjects that I don't have a firm answer on, because, well, I can say that I don't believe in the Christian version of what a demon is. However, I can tell you that beings and patterns of energy do exist that are absolutely counterintuitive to light, or absolutely on the opposite spectrum of God or creator or love. And that's not a judgment. It's really about proximity, about how close or far away something is. And so hell to me is not being proximate to source energy, or like when you, and people who say they've experienced hell, for example, through a near-death experience, what they really experienced upon death was a dimension that was a match for what was going on inside of them. Because as above, so below. So if you die and you are, you know, a base individual who has bad vibes, you are going to go to a dimension that reflects that. That doesn't mean you stay there or have to, because you don't. You can, as soon as you elevate your consciousness, the dimension follows. But so demons, I think there are inhuman, I think I lean towards there being inhuman entities, never been a human before, so they're not earthbounds knocking around in the fourth dimension, never been human before, that are anti-light. Do I think they fell from heaven with Satan, like in the big great bad? No, I don't. But I mean, when Jesus was tossing out demons from people, I mean, I think there's something to that. When the demon said, "My name is Legion, for I come in many," like that was a demon. I think that was a demon. But I think most experiences people have that are demonic are interactions they're having with their own energy and perceptions, and or earthbounds who are just dead people who are making trouble in the astral plane. That's what I think.
I can get down with that.
Can you get down with that, my friend?
I can get down with that.
All right.
You
well,
put
we're
it down,
agreement.
I picked it up.
All right.